Super Thursday to you, my dear freelance teaching colleagues, and every one of you watching and listening. It's my pleasure to be with you on day 4 of Teachers Week Special. I'm Jacob Tewa Jingi, the convener, Nigeria Freelance Teachers Association. And today I'm here to share my personal experience as a school child, as a teacher, and also as a public administrator in the education industry. I believe all of us will be interested to hear. First, let me start with my experience as a school child. And this is supposed to come in 2 parts. That is, my first 3 years in elementary school, and then my first 3 years in college. This is very important. There is a reason why I have structured it that way. So, let me start with my first day in elementary school. So my mom brought me to school. She completed all the formalities and then went back to her own school where she was also teaching. Okay? And from what I understood, coming in fresh into the school environment, that when school is over, the bell usually rings or someone rings the bell. So it happened that the first bell rang. It was time for break, or you can say breakfast. But I didn't get it like that. As far as I was concerned, that was the close of school. And without waiting for anybody, I started going home. After all, there was nobody to wait for. Nobody I could see around, so I decided to go home. Thank God for the security man in charge of the school premises. He immediately spotted me and ordered that the school children around me should hold me back. Those must be my seniors. And they held me strongly so that I will not move again. The commando in me immediately came into action. I started struggling. I said, condemn, leave me, let go of me. When it is said that mothers are divine, it is for a time like this. She arrived at exactly that time. As if she knew, as if she had a premonition. Something like that was going to happen. There she was on her Suzuki 80 bike, entering the school compound, laughing and smiling a lot freely, like nothing was wrong with her little prince. I didn't understand again. But seeing her, I felt some security around me, and I immediately calmed down. So those little giants, those other little giants trying to, yes. So sorry for that network interruption. What I was saying is those other little giants trying to hold me back, they were just lucky that time. Okay. Yes, so sorry again for the network interruptions. In Nigeria, we're resilient. No matter what happens, let's go on. So that's what happened on, that was the first segment of day one. What happened my very, yes, that's what happened my very first day in school. Now, something changed in me from that experience. Yes, something changed in me from that experience. When the bell for the final close of school eventually rang, I didn't even pay attention again. Funny enough, the school children all left, teachers all left. I was all alone on the school premises. Thankfully, my Ghanaian headmaster, Charles Adu of blessed memory, was a man who will never leave the school premises and go home without first of all physically inspecting the school premises, all around. And that was how he came and discovered me sitting all by myself in a corner. Okay? I didn't know how to speak English just yet. And he wasn't a thief person either. So he went through the stress of finding a thief man who will manage to speak to me. You know, school children at that age, even in their own language, to communicate. It's quite hard. But somehow, they were able to get one or two useful pieces of information. And based on that lead, they took me safely home to my anxiously waiting parents and relations. That was just my first day in school. Then, still within first year in elementary school, nursery 1 precisely, something happened that defined my academic status. The class teacher that time, class mistress, got my name entirely wrong. In fact, the name that I took with my scorecard or end of term exam result back home with me, it was a name even my parents were wondering how come about. Okay? But that wasn't even the first thing that caught their attention. The exam scorecard said their little boy scored 48 position out of 50. My dad could not understand, my mom could not understand. My dad himself knew how good he is in academics, likewise my mom. So how could they bring forth a third child? Impossible. Then, as they were wondering about this, voila, there was the name on the scorecard. And they got back to the school thinking that maybe my result was possibly exchanged with another school child's own. Yes. So that's what they did some other day, not exactly the same day. But on getting there, they discovered that was a name I was somehow given, I was somehow baptized with. And that in itself explained one or two other things. Learning and assessment in nursery 1 or at that elementary level was done orally mostly, because the children were just coming into school. They were yet to know anything about the basis of writing. In fact, they were trying to learn the alphabets, how to pronounce first, even before writing down clearly. So what that explained was, or what that implied was that whenever the class mistress took a roll call and called school children name by name to come forward for their own exam or assessment, I never heard my name. Okay? And being the playful type, I didn't seem to bother either. I would be busy constructing and riding or driving rather my car on the school desk. So sometimes what made me conscious I'm in the class is that I would just feel a whip, a little whip at my back. And before I realize it, I'll see that it's the teacher. So up till today, it's very hard to understand why she never got my name right, even after several corrections. Yes, so I had to be promoted on trial to nursery 2, where thankfully the class teacher there got my name right. So like I said previously here on Teachers Day precisely, it's like I actually started school in nursery 2. Yeah, because of that single mistake, which I believe wasn't deliberate. Okay? Except fresh information or evidence comes up otherwise. Because that's the much I knew and I can still remember now. So, that affected my academic performance largely. In nursery 2, in primary 1, I was still struggling academically. I was still studying academically, but I was no longer in the 48th position out of 50. Yes. So those were my first 3 years in elementary school as a school child. Now, fast forward to my first 3 years in college, still as a school child. When I entered college in my very first term, by the time my end of term result was out, I came second out of 40. A class was usually up to 40 students at most. Yes, but even at that, my class teacher or class master at the time still had issues with that. He said I was too playful. And so I was a class monitor that time. My first term, I was the class monitor. I was the first class monitor among my mates in that class 1B, JSS 1B. So he decided that I was no longer going to continue as class monitor. I didn't understand at the time. But the moment he relieved me of that responsibility, I started coming first in my second term in JSS 1 And I maintained first position throughout my junior secondary school classes. So that is a sharp contrast to where I was coming from, where it looked like that child was never a brilliant child academically. Here I was, right on the top spot. So those of us who are teachers were meant to learn from an experience like this. That is why I'm starting from my experience as a school child. There are so many things to learn from me. There are so many questions you may also be asking. And I wish you type them in the comments section as you follow this conversation so that we can continue even after this live session. Now, my experience as a school teacher. I taught for at least 10 good years, 10 solid years before my transition to public administration in the same education industry. Yes, and so that's how much my experience is rich and can also enrich perspectives by educators. When I started teaching, and I'm talking more specifically here about my personality, my teaching methods. Yes, these two, before I get to the third. I didn't train as a teacher initially. In fact, I didn't even have higher academic qualification other than my college results when I started as a teacher in elementary school. So you ask, did I perform? I believe if you ask my children that question, they will answer better on my behalf. Because for a school child to wake up every morning and he wants to go to school because of you, there must be something to it. And I believe even you as a parent will want to find out. Of course, during my teacher experience, there were parents that would follow their children to school just to come and see the Uncle Jacob or the teacher Jacob their children were always talking about. So that in summary is to tell you that I was very much successful with my teaching job. Very much successful, despite not training initially to be a teacher. And one of the things I mentioned here on Teachers Day, which I'm still going to repeat here for emphasis, I had passion. Yes, I had passion for the work I do. I had passion for the teaching job I was employed to do. And most importantly, I had passion for every one of those school children that was under my care. So every one of those school children felt connected to me. They felt connected to me. Okay? They felt I was very much their daddy and mommy in school, just like their own daddy and mommy at home. Yes, it was that interesting. And so it was quite impossible for me to say anything and they didn't catch it. They would pay attention. Sometimes they are trying to grasp it just so that at their own leisure they can begin to mimic me. Like I said previously, and that is going to the teaching methods too. One teaching method that has constantly been with me, and I consider it a lifetime teaching method of mine, That is demonstration. If I wanted my school children to know what the word dance meant, even before I pronounce the word dance, I would start moving my body like I'm dancing. And I'm doing it like I'm also playing, but dancing in a playful way, something like that. And sometimes even before I would pronounce the word in English, they have pronounced it in vernacular. And then instead of repeating it in vernacular, I would just say it in English. And then I will follow up with the action again. Dance. Dance. So you can't even imagine a school child who will not grasp that word immediately. Right? So it was one teaching method that was very much with me, and I was very effective with it. Yes, even before I would later train to be a teacher, I had already mastered this method. It was already part of me, rather. Better put, it was already part of me. Remember, I said I had that passion that connected me with the school children. And so I got down to their level most of the time, if not all the time. Okay, maybe except I wanted them to be serious and I wanted to enforce some level of discipline. Otherwise, I was always on their level. Yes. So sometimes I will use, alongside that demonstration, I'll use play. Play is a form of demonstration too. Right? So that made me very effective from day one till when I would train as a teacher and also go on teaching practice. And interestingly, by the time I was training as a teacher, I was also transitioning to my public administration job in the education sector, which is what I'm currently doing. So another thing I will talk about, and which is very important too, in the course of my teaching experience, even before I will go for further studies, I enrolled for a computer certificate course and one other course as well while I was teaching. So interestingly, anytime I obtained that certificate, I would go and see my employer, the school proprietor. I would say, "Sir, see my certificate, something has added though. I'm not the same way I came to your school that time. So my salary too has to show." Sometimes I would say it like I'm joking, but I'll be damn serious. And then at the end of the day, he would say, "Okay, go and give it to the..." He would say, "Jacob, go and show it to the school mommy. She will know what to do about it." Okay? And the interesting thing here is, if there was going to be an addition to my pay, then my other colleagues were also going to enjoy it. Because the kind of person I was, you can't even increase my own without increasing that of my other colleagues. Because I will bring in so many other parameters to establish why there needs to be increment across board. Yeah, so there's this school I'm just talking about now. That was the second private school where I was teaching at. Okay, and I will not serve there more than a year, or was it even up to a year, because of one agency or the other that had to take me away. But in that brief period, I was able to convince my school proprietor to increase the salary of his teaching staff twice. So imagine the salary of staff increased twice in a year. It's not ordinary, right? So that time, the minimum wage, what the federal government was paying as minimum wage was 3,500. I was collecting 2,500 in a private school. In a private school, where ordinarily even 1.5 would be difficult to get as a salary that time. Okay? So, in the course of my teaching experience, I wasn't just impacting on the school children. There was that impact on my fellow teachers too. And I didn't have to occupy a particular position to do that. Okay? Like I said, I had passion, and that passion connected me with the school proprietor too. As divine providence would have it, his house was just close to mine. So sometimes even in the evening, I would just take a casual walk and say, as I was passing by, I decided, let me come and greet you. Then we'll sit down and talk and discuss. Okay? So that bonding, that kind of bonding was already there. And then my job, I was doing my job very well. The parents knew, my teaching colleagues knew, the school children were even celebrating it already. Yes, there were occasions where, because the class I was taking, which was Nursery 1, it was very close to a street that passed at the back of the school. So sometimes I could see parents standing by the window to observe how I was handling those school children. They were that attracted to what I was doing. And that brief period, I saw an explosion of admission numbers. So many parents bringing their children to school. So that showed in the proprietor's attitude too. He didn't take me for granted. And I didn't misuse that position either. I didn't try to look for just my own personal advantages. I was so selfless about it. And that in a large way explains why I have taken up this role of convener of the Nigeria Freelance Teachers Association. Because just like you and me know, I'm doing this not for my personal benefit. It's not obvious. I'm doing this out of that same passion that I have already spoken about. So that was me there as a negotiator, being able to convince my school proprietor to increase not just my pay, but the pay of other teaching colleagues twice in a year. 500 naira once, 500 naira again. And before you know it, we were getting very close to the minimum wage at the time, which is still part of the issues that are under focus under my watch as convener of Nigeria Freelance Teachers Association. Then, last but not the least, as a school teacher those days, there was this teaching colleague that left his job urgently. He couldn't get in touch with the proprietor. He couldn't get in touch with even the headmaster. And so, because of that, the proprietor directed that the headmaster should prepare his sack letter. You know, the way they do their things. There wasn't even room for, let's say, query him and all of that. Because he left, what you can say, absconded. He left for like 2 weeks. Nobody heard anything from him. Nobody saw him. And then Because of that passion I had that connects me with everybody around me, especially in the immediate environment, I got to learn about this from the school's headmaster himself. We were discussing and just as friends, and then he brought the matter to my attention. Then immediately I started talking him off the whole idea. And I started explaining why he could do that. Okay, even before hearing from him, because of the level of interaction I had with him before, I knew that he wouldn't just leave the school. There must be a very concrete reason. And being someone the school management never liked to take for granted for once. In fact, they didn't even want to let me go. If they had their way, I would have been teaching them up to today, right? But the point is they listened to me. I was able to prevail on them to see reason why they should pardon that teacher and also give him a second chance. Then if he doesn't meet up as expected, they can decide what to do. So they were convinced. And when that teacher came back, they told him to behave so that action will not be taken against him. Okay? I personally learned from that teacher that because this teaching job was not paying enough, he had gone to Kaduna State, all the way from Benue here, in search of what he considered to be a better paying teaching job. But when he got there, it's like, in fact, he didn't make it. The 2 or 3 persons came ahead of him and were preferred above him. He didn't make it and came back. So it was his saving grace that I had pleaded for him. And there he was reinstated to his teaching job. So this part of my experience, I wasn't just there as a teacher. I was also a negotiator and a mediator, even for my teaching colleagues. I didn't have any major role or position in school that I was assigned. Just being me, and out of passion, I was able to fulfill those important parts. Right? So that is it for my teaching experience for now. I could go on and on, but for time, maybe we'll leave it to another day. For those of you that were here on Teachers Day, you can go back to that live session. There are some things I said under my teaching experience that I'm not able to say today for want of time. You can go back and hear them again. Yes, even if you were not here with me on Teachers Day, still go back and watch that live session on this page. The video is still very much here. And I believe some of the things I've left unsaid, you'll hear them again and you appreciate them as well. Yes. So last but not the least, I'm talking now about my experience as a public administrator in the same education ministry. This is where I still get to work with my teaching colleagues. I'm always with my teaching colleagues. The only people I miss so much this time are the students, whom I'm not always directly in touch with, but I'm always interacting with my teaching colleagues. We're always rubbing minds, sharing experiences. Yeah, so even before the idea of this association came up, I was already very much in touch with my teaching colleagues as a public administrator in the education industry. And one thing I can say is that that relationship has impacted even the schools, because there are policies of government that some schools were hesitant to go about them, because to them, the required infrastructure, manpower, and everything was not provided, and then government brought those policies. But I was so technical and diplomatic the way I handled their complaints and all of that. And at the end of the day, they were able to implement those policies, okay, in less economical ways, but very effective. And I was able to do that because I had gained their trust. I had won their confidence. So it's very important. Just like a teacher should always win the trust and confidence of his school children, so a public administrator, not just a school administrator, but a public administrator in the education industry, you should be able to win and keep the trust and confidence of teachers. They will tell you even things their life partners may not be privileged to hear, right? So that is one thing I have gained, and they have also gained from me in the course of my public administration or public service career in the education sector. But one thing I said on Teachers Day, and I will still stress here for emphasis, I'll still say it here for emphasis. Teachers are people that should always maintain their confidence level, no matter what. Yes, it's true that teachers have been generally shortchanged and even dehumanized in the system. They are treated far, far, far less than they deserve. That's very true. But the teacher, being who he or she is not one that should be broken and one that should completely lose composure, lose confidence. And one key point I make around this, if a teacher has low self-esteem and he's always surrounded by school children who are looking up to him, indirectly or even directly, he's teaching those school children low self-esteem. They will acquire it from him. But if a teacher has confidence, and whenever his school children are around him, they see that confidence, then he's directly teaching them confidence. So teaching is not just the topic you write on the board or the notes you copy and all of that classroom stuff. Teaching is much more practical. Everything you say, everything you do, especially around your school children, you are already delivering your teaching lessons to them that way. So I always tell teachers in private and even on forums like this, discussion forum like this, don't let your confidence level go down. Let it always come up, because that is what you are directly or indirectly teaching your own students too, your school children. You have low self-esteem, you are teaching them what? Low self-esteem. If you have confidence, you are teaching them confidence. So, this is just a brief account of my experience as a school child, as a school teacher, and also as a public administrator in the education ministry. I believe everyone listening here has been able to pick a vital point or two. Feel free to engage me in the comment section. Feel free to engage us We'll be right there with you. And we'll also engage you on every point, even on every question you have to raise. I believe every one of us here can pick one or two things that are of value. If you have an experience to share, just like mine, or slightly different but important, we can't all have the same experiences. We all have our unique experiences as school children, as school teachers, as administrators. If you also do have your own unique experiences that you consider to be of value, feel free to share in the comment section and even post to your own social media timeline. Let the conversation continue, like I always say. And that's the essence of this Teachers Week special. So thank you very much. It's good having you around. By the special grace of God, this is where we wrap it up today. And God willing, we will be closing this Teachers Week special event tomorrow. So watch out for our Facebook live session tomorrow. Till I see you, take good care of yourself and stay positive, stay hopeful, stay confident. God bless you.